Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, The Creation, Chapter 9, verse number 8. Anye cha munayo brahman brahmatadyo mulanaha sishyair upeta ajagmuhu kasyapan girishadharashaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: and many others like Sukadeva Goswami and other purified souls, Kashyapa, Angirasa, and others, all accompanied by their respective disciples, arrived there. Purport: Sukadeva Goswami, Brahmaratha, the famous son and the disciple of Srila Vyasadeva, who taught him first the Mahabharata and then Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadeva Goswami recited 1,400,000 verses of Mahabharata in the councils of the Gandharvas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, and he recited Srimad Bhagavatam for the first time in the presence of Maharaj Parikshit. He thoroughly studied all the Vedic literatures from his great father. Thus, he was completely purified soul by the dint of his extensive knowledge in the principles of religion. From Mahabharata, Sabhaparva, it is understood that he was also present in the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthir and at the fasting of Maharaj Parikshit. As the bona fide disciple of Srila Vyasadeva, he inquired from his father very extensively about religious principles and spiritual values. This great father also satisfied him by teaching him the yoga by which one can attain the spiritual kingdom, the difference between fruitive work and empiric knowledge, and the ways and means of attaining spiritual realization, the four ashramas, namely the student life, the householder life, the retired life, and the renounced life, the sublime position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the process of seeing Him face to face, the bona fide candidate for receiving knowledge, and consideration of the five elements, the unique position of intelligence, the consciousness of the material nature and the living entity, the symptoms of the self-realized soul, the working principles of the material body, the symptoms of the influences of nature, the tree of perpetual desire, and the psychic activities. Sometimes he went to the sun planet with the permission of his father and Naradji. Descriptions of his travel in space are given in Shanti Parva of Mahabharata. At last, he attained the transcendental realm. He is known by different names like Aranyaya, Arunishuta, Vayasaki, Vayasatmaja, Kashyapa, one of the Prajapatis, the son of Marichi, and one of the son-in-laws of Prajapati Daksha. He is the father of the gigantic bird Garuda, who was given elephants and tortoises as eatables. He married 13 daughters of Prajapati Daksha, and their names are Atidi, Diti, Danu, Kashta, Arista, Surasa, Gila, Muni, Krodavasha, Tamara, Surabhi, Sarama, and Timi. He begot many children, both demigods and demons, by those wives. From his first wife Aditi, all the 12 Adityas were born. One of them is Vamana, the incarnation of Godhead. This great sage Kashyapa was also present at the time of Arjuna's birth. He received a presentation of the whole world from Parashurama and later on asked Parashurama to go out to the world. His other names are Arishtyanemi. He lives on the north side of the universe. Angirasa, he is the son of Maharshi Angira and is known as Brahaspati, the priest of the demigods. It is said that Dronacharya was his partial incarnation. Sukracharya was the spiritual master of the demons, and Brihaspati challenged him. His son is Kacha, and he delivered the fire weapon first of Bharadwaja Muni. He begot 6 sons, like the fire god, by his wife Chandramasi, one of the reputed stars. He could travel in space, and therefore he could present himself even in the planets of Brahmaloka and Indraloka. He advised the king of heavens, Indra, about conquering the demons. Once he cursed Indra, who thus had to become a hog on the earth and was unwilling to return to heaven. Such is the power of attraction of the illusionary energy. Even a hog does not wish to part with its earthly possessions in exchange for heavenly kingdom. He was the religious preceptor of the natives of different planets. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtakim. So Hare Krishna, welcome on this nice Ekadashi day. Just to be clear, today is Ekadashi, but not suitable for fasting. So tomorrow we'll be fasting tomorrow. So we'll recite, I'll try to put in some words on this wonderful Srimad Bhagavatam on this Ekadashi day. Before I do it, I'm neither qualified to speak on this elevated subject, but as a service, I would like to share some thoughts that are in my mind, but I seek your blessings before I share those thoughts. So here in this section, we are seeing how, as the Pandavas are assembling, assembling with, Bhishma Dev, right before Bhishma Dev is about to pass away, they're assembling, and we are about to hear from Bhishma Dev, like Maharaj Yudhishthira is about to hear from Bhishma Dev, right? And then you can see how the news kind of spread about this wonderful pastime that is going to unfold. And we can see how great personalities from far and wide are coming into this august assembly, right? Just to hear from Bhishma Dev. So, we heard about several great personalities that were assembled, and in today's verse, we are specifically, this verse is specifically speaking towards Sukadeva Goswami, Kashyapa Muni, and Angirasa, or Brihaspati, right? So I thought I will spend a little time on Sukadeva, on glorifying Sukadeva Goswami. So obviously we are hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami here. So he's narrating the narration of what happened right now. So actually, Sutta Goswami is speaking about his pastime, because the first 2 cantos are pretty much focused, or first canto especially is pretty much focused in the narration of Sutta Goswami. If you remember, when we first started the canto 1, the sages of Nayamisharan assembled. Their effort to perform yajna is not successful, and then they posed 6 questions. And of the 6 questions, the last question was about where did all the religious principle take shelter? And that was the last question in this age of Kali. That was the last question that was posed, right? And then eventually, Sutta Goswami answers all the questions, the different incarnations. And then when they're about to, he speaks the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka, they ask a question. Can you give us a history about Srimad Bhagavatam? What is the history of the Srimad Bhagavatam? Before even narrates Srimad Bhagavatam, what is the history of this? And as part of this history of Srimad Bhagavatam, the whole I wouldn't say story, the whole pastime is being laid out, right? How initially Vyasadeva was despondent, and then Srimad Bhagavatam, and he got instruction from Narada Muni to write Srimad Bhagavatam. And then we also see how now the story is building up to how this Bhagavatam has been narrated by Sukadeva Goswami, the spiritual, Sutta Goswami considers Sukadeva Goswami as a spiritual master. So as part of that sequence, now we see how Mahabharata ends, meaning how all the lineage of Pandavas were killed, pretty much everybody, right? And then how Yudhishthira Maharaj is put on the throne. And now we are approaching Bhishmadev, giving the knowledge of ruling, the Kshatriya, how to rule a kingdom to Yudhishthira Maharaj here. So this is a nice context because it also, it is also laying a foundation to a principle that I've been meditating upon. So, we know how Sukadeva Goswami is a very, very elevated personality. So before even he took his form as Sukadeva Goswami, as the son of Vyasadeva, Sukadeva Goswami was a parrot, right? He was the parrot of Srimati Radharani. After Krishna and Radharani performed their pastimes, the MohanaLila here in this world, as Radharani was departing or leaving this world, right? Or not, we wouldn't say leaving, maybe unmanifesting her pastimes. She wanted her parrot to stay back. But the parrot was desperate. The parrot wanted to go back along with Radharani. But Radharani insists that the parrot should stay back. And she says, wherever Srimad Bhagavatam is being recited, you stay there. And that will give you shelter in this material world. And then the parrot travels across all continents and all planets. And then finally, it goes to Kailash, where Lord Shiva is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Mother Parvati. So we all hear this pastime, how beautifully Lord Shiva is narrating this pastime to Mother Parvati, and the parrot is hiding behind in the bushes and hearing the whole narration of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Mother Parvati falls asleep. And then, because Mother Parvati, as Lord Shiva, he closes his eyes and he's reciting Bhagavatam in meditation. So the only way he understands that Parvati is listening to her or is confirming whatever that she understood, whatever Lord Shiva was reciting, is by making a hum. He says like that. So eventually Mother Parvati falls and dozes off into sleep. But because the parrot was so immersed in Srimad Bhagavatam, she didn't want Lord Shiva to end this narration. So the parrot starts to hum like Mother Parvati. And then eventually the whole Bhagavatam is recited. And towards the end, Mother Parvati wakes up. And then she begs for forgiveness from Lord Shiva, saying that why, I'm so sorry because I fell asleep while you're narrating this pastime. And then Shiva says, oh, I thought you were awake always. And then who is humming all this time along? And then he realizes this parrot is there. And then Lord Shiva, and this is, there's a very subtle point here that I want to mention. That's why, even though this pastime is very familiar to many of us, I wanted to narrate this. The subtle point here is Lord Shiva says this Bhagavatam is very, very confidential knowledge or very important knowledge. So if it falls in the wrong hands, there is a chance that this Bhagavatam will become corrupt. So he decides to kill the parrot. But the parrot flies away quickly, and Lord Shiva chases the parrot again and again. And finally, the parrot comes to the ashram of Vyasadeva. And actually, it enters into the into the body of Vyasadeva's wife. So now and this is the point I'm trying to make, there's a very nice conversation between Vyasadeva and Lord Shiva that happens. So Vyasadeva asks Lord Shiva, why do you want, why are you chasing this parrot and why do you want to kill this parrot? Now, actually, Shiva asks, there's a parrot that came this way. I need to find it. I have to kill it. And then Lord Shiva tells him what has happened and says, I narrated Srimad Bhagavatam. This parrot heard the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is very confidential knowledge. And anybody who hears this confidential knowledge, the glory of Srimad Bhagavatam is so great. It is so pure that they will transcend this material world and they will become immortal and they become spiritualized. Then Vyasadeva very nicely, he convinces Lord Shiva. He says, if this is the potency of Srimad Bhagavatam and the parrot heard this Srimad Bhagavatam, that means it has become transcendental. It is beyond this birth and death, and there's no way you can kill this parrot. Then what is the point? Why are you chasing and trying to kill this parrot? I thought that subtle point was very, very nice. How Vyasadeva is emphasizing the glory of Bhagavatam that Lord Shiva just mentioned about, right? So then eventually, Sukadeva Goswami becomes, the child in the womb of the wife of Vyasadeva. And then for 16 years, he stays in the womb. He never comes out because he feels this material world is a place of distress, right? It is a place of duality, and he wants to remain pure as Atma Rama. He stays there for 16 years, but eventually, by the request of Vyasadeva, he comes out. But then he starts walking away. Now, we also heard this whole pastime of how Sukadeva Goswami starts to walk away, and Vyasadeva, actually, I was hearing a lecture about it. He addresses his son as Putra, but he addresses in 3 different tones. Initially, he says Putra, then he says Putra, and then he says Putra. He shouts loud out of his heart. And at that time, what happens is the trees echo that sound, because there's so many trees around, they echo the sound. And then it is very nicely explained that the trees are looking at Vyasadeva and they're feeling so compassionate to Vyasadeva. He says, the trees say, it seems, we are trees and we are not attached to our sons, meaning the seeds, the fruits and everything. And Vyasadeva, you're such a great personality. How are you so attached to your son? You should be more elevated than us. So I like that irony, how we become attached to many things, right? So, and then eventually Sukadeva Goswami is narrated a nice verse by Vyasadeva that attracts Sukadeva Goswami to this transcendental subject of Srimad Bhagavatam. I thought I'll take a few minutes to kind of study that verse. I didn't get a chance, but if I understand correctly, it is about Ahobakiyam, where Lord Krishna is glorified, how he gives a transcendental position of mother to Putana, even though she intends to kill, and then that attracts that Sukadeva Goswami to Srimad Bhagavatam. Now the point I want to get to is eventually we know how Sukadeva Goswami is a transcendental personality. He's in a liberated platform, and the way he did not accept the norms of this world, of you have to dress in a certain way or you have to behave in a certain way or whatnot. He completely rejected those principles. He would not even wear clothes, right? So one may ask a question, and I was hearing this nice lecture by His Own Lokanath Swami. When somebody asks him a question, right, why are you not wearing any garments? Sukadeva Swami would say, don't you see, are you blind? I am already wearing a garment. That was the platform of Sukadeva Goswami. He says, this body is a garment on my soul. So I'm already wearing a garment. And are you blind not to see that I'm wearing a garment on myself? That is the level of realization of Sukadeva Goswami, that he always felt he was a spirit soul. And this body, for us, when we say, are you not wearing a dress? Because we identify with the body, we say, yes, I'm not wearing a dress, or I'm wearing a nice dress or a not so nice dress. But Sukadeva Goswami, he feels that this body itself is a garment. I thought that was like a very profound realization, right? I mean, obviously he's Atma Rama, right? So now I'm trying to get into my next topic of the mood in which we need to hear from Bhagavatam, right? Especially when we hear from our equals. So we see how Sukadeva Goswami, the way he behaved in this material world was, he never wore clothes. His hair was matted. He just looked like a madman. For those of you who grew up in India, or if you've seen certain incidents, how there are a few mad people that roam around. I come from a village, we used to have one mad guy. He just roams around the village, crazy guy, right? He doesn't wear clothes properly or anything like that. But nobody worried about him, cared about him. But sometimes, whenever he goes crazy, people would chase him out, right? They would, because, you don't know how a mad person reacts all of a sudden sometimes. He could hurt you or harm you or stuff like that. So he, so people throw stones or ridicule that person, depending upon, the children, sometimes in a playful way, they would harass mad people, right? So similarly, Sukadeva Goswami was being treated like that. He was being, and this is when this wonderful scene is established, right? Where Maharaj Parikshit has been cursed. He decides to fast on the bank of Ganges, and then Sukadeva Goswami just walks into that assembly. And then, now let us all imagine ourselves in the shoes of these people, who are thinking this is a mad person and who are chasing him away. As soon as he walks into this this assembly of Parikshit Maharaj, they realize, oh my God, there's the emperor of this world is right here. And this crazy person is walking into that place where all these great sages and the emperor of the world is. But the moment Sukadeva Goswami walks in, everybody falls down on their feet and then offers dandavats. Now imagine us as these common people. All of a sudden, this person is being offered so much respect. So there would be a huge shift in our perception, a huge shift of, we assume that this person is such a normal person, a crazy person, but now he's being offered respect. That means I forgot to, or I was so much in illusion that I did not see how elevated this person is. And then obviously, the later pastime shows us how Sukadeva Goswami reveals this transcendental knowledge to Maharaj Parikshit. We hear always Maharaj Parikshit fast for 7 days. He did not sleep for 7 days, but that is also true with Sukadeva Goswami, right? And then he has to go through this ordeal of seeing Maharaj Parikshit being devoured by Takshaka and whatnot and everything, right? So that is one point I wanted to make here, right? As we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, a lot of the times we do not realize how profound realizations each of the Bhagavatam speakers, we consider a lot of times us as equals, each other's, right? We joke with each other, we have fun with each other and whatnot. But in true reality, each and every of our, devotee associates, I would say, they are considered Manushyanam Sahasreshu. Krishna says, out of many thousands of men may endeavor for one may endeavor perfection. So every person on this call is Manushyanam Sahasreshu, Kaschitya Prasiddhye. Because Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanaman Mam Prapatyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sa Mahatma Sudurlabha. After taking many millions of births, they have come to this profound realization, obviously by the mercy of acharyas and whatnot, that Krishna is all in all. So when such is the conviction of each and every devotee in our congregation, how much value we should show to that association. So often what happens is, we take, we forget that um, how fortunate we are to have this association. There's a nice quote I always try to remember. This one quote I heard in actually is His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj's Journey Home book. The quote that really keeps me going is, he says, while seeking similar goals, people often tend to focus on differences. I forgot the exact pastime, what happens, exact experience that Maharaj goes through. But in the end, he gives this statement when he sees that this whole thing happens. He gives the statement that really stuck with me. He says, while seeking similar goals, people tend to focus on the differences. And those differences kind of, and this is my, that is a quote. The quote ends there. And my continuation to that is, when we focus on the differences, it just creates gaps for us. That is one point I wanted to make. I'll take a few more minutes. I think we're running out of time. The second aspect, I think we touched a little bit, and it was very interesting how this whole last several weeks of conversations were going. We're talking about Shruti, Smriti, and whatnot. So something that I want to share is, the Shruti aspect, meaning whatever we hear from, whatever was heard directly from Krishna. Let us take the example of Srimad Bhagavad Gita. That's highest, right? It's very profound. And Krishna within Bhagavad Gita also categorizes knowledge into different sections. And he says the most confidential knowledge, and he gives in that most confidential knowledge, he gives how we are the soul and how he is the super soul. And what is that relationship between us and the super soul, which is the highest of all, that relationship, understanding that relationship between us and Krishna. But then after we hear Bhagavad Gita is like, a graduate school, but then Bhagavatam is like the postgraduate, like the master's degree. And then obviously Chaitanya Charitamrita is like the PhD. If Krishna is saying this is the most confidential knowledge, then why Srimad Bhagavatam is considered postgraduate degree? It is considered postgraduate degree because this confidential knowledge, when it is put into implementation by the devotees of the Lord, they get very wonderful realizations in their own life. And those realizations are being shared to us. So it is the experience of a devotee of that confidential knowledge that is being shared to us through Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's why it is a postgraduate degree. So it is very, very nectarian. So when we approach Srimad Bhagavatam, we need to understand how we can approach is every individual person, when you put that knowledge of Bhagavad Gita in our life, we have a very, very unique experience that we get because of the circumstances of our own life. For example, Parikshit Maharaj, he's cursed by Shringi, and it creates a unique situation for him. And how the mercy of the Lord comes as Shukadeva Goswami, as this August assembly, it creates a very unique experience for him in his relationship with Krishna. And we are able to relish that. So similarly, Sukadeva Goswami has unique experience. The conversation between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit is giving us some more nectar of how people experience Krishna consciousness. Now, as this topic or this conversation between Sutta Goswami and Sukadeva Goswami happens, they are discussing about another personality's experience. For example, they are discussing about Bhishmadev here, right? How Bhishmadev experienced Krishna consciousness and how he cherished that. So this is a conversation about a conversation about a conversation about a conversation of the unique experiences that devotees of Krishna have. Now, this is the highlight I want to make here. As all these conversations are happening, whoever is sitting and giving us Bhagavatam class, this person has some certain circumstances in their own life, and they are along with us, and we share a lot of commonalities with each other because we are in the same age, the same setting. This pretty much like 80 to 80% is same setting for us and whoever is speaking Srimad Bhagavatam. And when that person is reading Srimad Bhagavatam, they get this unique experience out of reading this pastime. And when they sit on the Vyasasana and they share their realizations, we can relish how this person is relishing Srimad Bhagavatam. So I was having a nice conversation the other day. Is when we approach some scripture and when we try to learn some scripture, there are different levels in which we learn. For example, this if you take the concept about English, or let us say you're reading a book like a Shakespeare book, right? If that particular play is being explained, say Julius Caesar or whatever, right, is being explained to a fourth grader or a fifth grader, what happens is the way the teacher would say is he would explain the whole story, and then he would give to understand if this person understood the knowledge or not, he would give multiple choice questions or fill in the blanks. And now when a student scores multiple choice questions or fill in the blanks and he scores 10 out of 10, he thinks I understood everything. Is it true? Yes, very likely he understood the whole thing. But now the same Julius Caesar, when you go to a 10th grader or a 12th grader, what the teacher would no longer give you fill in the blanks or match the following or anything like that. They would ask them to write an essay about it. When the students, say a class of 30 students, write an essay about it, each person kind of gets 80% of it pretty much the same. They understand the pastime the same way, the whole drama the same way. But there will be 20% that becomes very unique experience to that particular person, which is conveyed through that essay. And similarly, when you go to postgraduate degree, it goes deeper, but they share much more deeper understanding of that subject. So when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, so this is the conclusion I want to make. When we hear Srimad Bhagavatam from other devotees, yes, 80% will look like the same thing, whatever is being described. If I read it on my own, it is going to be the same thing. Or when the person explains, it's going to be the same thing. 80% is going to be the same thing. But we should carefully look for that 20%, which is a unique experience for this devotee. That's some special realization that came to them. When we look at that, because that we will never be able to get that realization, because we will never be in the circumstances of that devotee. But when you're able to catch that 20, whatever nectar that person derived by reading this pastime or in connection to Krishna, we are also able to relish that nectar. So I want to conclude by saying, yes, as we assemble every day, let us not just recognize the speaker as one of our fellow devotees, but a person who is coming here to share some unique realization that they got. And let us try to find that what that 20% is, and that will take us to a totally different level, because whatever the nectar that person experienced, he is sharing with us. He or she is sharing with us. This is what I would like to end here. Any questions, comments, or anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhupada, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for such a very nice discussion. And I must say that when you speak, I should always look for that 20% when you speak. Today's was the 20% alone. And then I had this question about Sukadeva Goswami learning everything from his father, as it says in the purport. And then how come at his birth itself he is leading? He learned everything in the womb only?
Very good question, Mataji. And I was thinking, because we hear very little about Shukadeva Goswami, I don't know if there is any Because Srila Prabhupada is saying in this purport that there is a section of Mahabharata in Shabda Parva, 4.11. I think around that area, there's more detail about how Shukadeva Goswami gained knowledge. Actually, I was looking up somewhere and I found out that Shukadeva Goswami got Srimad Bhagavatam from 4 personalities, actually. So I didn't get enough time to do research or whatnot. But in this particular article, what was explaining was that Shukadeva Goswami got Srimad Bhagavatam, obviously, from Lord Shiva. We hear that he got from Vedavyas. And then there is a different section later on after Ajamel's pastime, I believe. I think that article said, where it quotes that Shukadeva Goswami glorifies Angira Muni for reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to him. So, and then I couldn't catch the 4th personality. So it's hard to conceive, Mataji, where he got from. And this is also, there's also this component of which particular yuga cycle also, right? Because this is Nitya Leela again, right? So sometimes it could be a difference between which yuga cycle this pastime may have occurred to, right? So at least I don't have the background to it. I think the very little I know is from, from the first few chapters in the first canto. That's what.
But in this purport is saying clearly from his father.
Yes.
As a disciple of one of a disciple of Srivasa, he inquired from his father about all these
various subject matters, right?
And that's I was surprised because he is living right there. Then one more little question, that is there is no thirst or hunger in the spiritual body. It is said. Is that true? like I feel I mean this continuous process of it, speaking, hearing, like King Parishit, without even he was completely fasting for 7 days. So I wonder whether there is no thirst or hunger in the spiritual body.
No idea, Mataji. If somebody wants to add to it, I think anybody wants to add.
Then one more question is maybe others have questions. I will stop here.
Go ahead, Mataji. Yeah.
That one, these sages, they seem to live through. I mean, their lifespan is inestimable. Like Vasishta Muni is in Sri Ram's. I mean, Dasharath's. Palace, and Vasishta Muni is coming here to at Bhishma Dev's passing, and so many kalpas have passed, and and then another thing I find interesting, Prabhu, that this Vasishta Muni and Vishwamitra Muni had that big fight of the or the Kamadevu thing, and Vishwamitra Muni is killing all his 100 sons over. I mean, he's a king at that time. For this sake of this Kamadhenu and all that. I mean, the kind of and still Sage Vishwamitra is accompanying Sri Ram, and Sri Ram is getting Sri Ram to come and protect his. So I mean, how can you take that? I mean, that kind of fight would seem like what we have in amongst humans for some possessions or something like that. It would seem so unbelievable of these high characters, sages. That I was very surprised.
Yes, Mataji, I think.
And causing so much misery. I mean, all his and Vasishta Muni tried to commit suicide 3 times.
Yes, we heard that yesterday, right? Yes.
Oh Lord, it seemed more than normal in those situations.
That's the greatness about forgiveness that they practice, right?
Yeah. It's amazing stories, amazing. Thank you very much, Prabhu. It was very,
Thank you. Yes.
very wonderful class.
Should we end it here for today?
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Very thoughtful presentation. So, I mean, I think I would say the other way, Prabhu, when you speak, people, I mean, devotees like you speak, 80% we need to be realization.
Krishna. No, Prabhu.
So it was very nice presentation, Prabhu. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Linga Prabhu, we'll end it here. Okay. Grandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.